Okay, last week I mentioned to you that the gospel for every first Sunday of Lent, year after year, is an account of what? Jesus' 40 days in the desert, right? No matter what year, A, B, or C, it's always on the account of Jesus' 40 days in the desert, where he's preparing for his public ministry and he is doing battle with the evil one, right? And then the second Sunday, which we're in now, it's always also the same account. Depending on what year, it's Matthew, Mark, or Luke. We're in year C, so it's Luke, right? And so this one is the account of, you just heard it. Yes, the Transfiguration. So notice what is common, though, in both accounts. Jesus leaves the town away from civilization, goes away from the world in order to go and pray to the Father, in order to commune with God. And we're talking about a long time of prayer here, right? In the desert, it was 40 days and 40 nights. Up in Mount Tabor, it was the whole day, that so long that the disciples start falling asleep on him. And it's only when Jesus begins to be transfigured that they wake up and they see these two other heavenly figures conversing with Jesus, Moses and Elijah, right? You have Moses representing the law, and you have Elijah representing the prophets, and the fulfillment of both the law and the prophets right in the middle. Jesus, the Son of God, right? And so in last Sunday's gospel, it was out in the desert. This time it's up in the mountain. In order to hear the voice of God, even Jesus himself, to hear it more clearly, went out into the desert, into the mountain. In other words, away from the world to a quiet place. So last week, at the suggestion of the Hallow app's Pray 40 challenge, we took 3 minutes of silence at the end of the homily. And we're supposed to take a moment of silence at the end of the homily, according to the general instruction, but not 3 minutes worth. Well, we did last week. So, and during that 3 weeks after Mass, I got all kinds of feedback from folks. And, I even had a high school freshman come up to me and said, you know what? That was the most at peace I've felt. I was totally at peace at that moment. And this high school freshman said, away from all the screens and the noise and all that stuff, and he felt the Lord say to him, "See how awesome this is? I've been trying to get you to spend more time with me, and now that you are, see how awesome this is?" And he later told me, he said, it's like Jesus was saying, "I told you so." And then an elderly gentleman said that he heard God encourage him to reach out to his children, his adult children that he hadn't spoken to for a long, long time. So again, God always working that work of reconciliation and of unity of the human family. A third instance, sometimes God communicates to us through images. Well, one of our musicians, Julie, she said I could share this with you. She said this month has been particularly stressful for her. The way she would describe it to folks is that her brain was so frazzled that it either felt like it was melting or that it was like one of those snow globes, those snow globes, and it was all shaken up, right? That was her head going like this. And her mind felt all shaken up, and all the snowflakes in the snow globe were symbolic of all her discombobulated thoughts that were in complete disarray. And she had been praying, "Lord, will you please put my brain back together?" And after these 3 minutes of silence, this question popped in her mind. What happens to the snow globe when she's in adoration? The snow globe representing her mind, the snow globe stops shaking, right? And all those snowflakes that symbolized her confused thoughts just began falling into place until there was this great stillness, great silence, a great peace. So Julie experienced what the psalmist said, "Be still and know that I am God," right? That's what Jesus does when we join him in the desert in Lent, escaping from all the noise, fasting from all that noise, or up on the mountain, or in the adoration chapel, or right here at Mass, when we sit with him in silence, away from the noise of the world. In the built-in moments of silence during Mass, we're meant to rest in Jesus and to absorb whatever teaching or grace that he has just offered us in the moment before. And yes, that may be really tough when we have little children to concentrate, right? But they need to be shown week in and week out where to go as adults when their world goes bonkers and crazy, right? And that is to go to Jesus, who gives us a peace that only he can give. So I'll come back to this at the end of the homily. We'll take a moment of silence to rest in Jesus once again. But first, I have to cover what the bishop has asked every parish in the diocese to talk about this month, and that's our annual DSA appeal. It's that time of year again already. But as you know, here in our parish, we like to talk about the DSA in the wider context of what we pledge to give to Sunday offertory and our capital expenditures. So addressing all three at once saves us from speaking about tithing again in another separate homily, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. So to St. John. But anyway, the tithe, the word tithe comes from the Old English word meaning tenth. Tithing refers to the tradition that goes back to our faith's Jewish roots, where everyone contributed a tenth of their income or produce to the temple, right? And so for those new to our parish at St. John, we've adopted the 5-4-1 model of stewardship, and right there, and where we invite everyone to divide that 10% contribution in a specific way, in three ways more specifically. And so 5 plus 4 plus 1 is 10, so that's why we call it the 5-4-1 challenge. And first, the 5%, what does that represent? It's that weekly envelope that we put into the basket. The 5% parish operations is basically what that is. And we only call it weekly because that's how often we get the envelope. But you can do it at any spatial time. I do mine monthly, for example, an online contribution to our Sunday offertory monthly. So that 5% of our income goes essentially to support our life of worship here in the church and our work of mission to proclaim Christ to all of Jackson County and beyond, right? It supports the salaries and benefits of our incredible staff, our church supplies, our parish outreach, all of our ministries, our maintenance of our campuses, and other operating expenses. So, and the biggest portion of that Sunday offertory goes to subsidizing the cost of education at our St. John School, which accounts for about 30% of our Sunday offertory. And to tell you how much imagine if the parents had to pay for the full cost of education, because that 30% subsidy to the school accounts for almost $3,000 per student. Imagine if parents had to pay that $3,000 more for their tuition. We wouldn't have very many kids there, right? So that's why we're dedicated to that school. And I'm so proud, by the way, and happy to say that we are just killing it in the parish offertory, in the Sunday offertory this year, right? I had mentioned to you that we need to prove to the bishop that our offertory can support a second priest, and you all stepped up. Because we've had a second priest all the way up until 7 years ago, and now that we have a bumper crop of priests of 7 guys getting ordained this year, we hope that one of them will be ours. So the next slide, please. So first, 5% to our offertory for operations. Second, what's the 4%? That's the monthly yellow envelope. And again, it doesn't have to be monthly. It can be however way I do mine a monthly contribution automatically to that capital expenditures fund. So for this one, I want to show you a few things that your donations to the capital fund goes towards. And the first one here is, of course, what's going on behind me. Behind these curtains, we're making a gorgeous masterpiece of the adoration of the Lamb, or the marriage supper of the Lamb. And when the great multitude of saints surrounding the Lamb, adoring the Lamb, communing with Jesus, right? And so that's what those halos are for behind. If you always wondered what our artist looks like, Joseph Macklin, that's him. And then the next one shows the intricate detail with which he paints. I blow this up just to show you the world-class quality of his work, and stuff that you won't see from down here, but is being painted up there. You can see it says Our Lady of Guadalupe along there. He's obviously not done because her mantle is teal, tealish color. And the next one is St. John the Evangelist himself, our patron saint, there gazing upon the Lamb. I mean, look at that expression on his face. It's like, he's like, what you've revealed to me in word, writing the Gospel of John, writing the epistles, writing the book of Revelation, all of that doesn't compare to what I'm beholding right now, right? It's just this enamored look of ecstasy. So love that picture of him. Next one is another project that your capital funds have supported is getting rid of those Lexan ugly, opaque coverings on our stained glass windows so that we can actually see the beauty of our stained glass windows now from the outside. I took this shot just a few nights ago, and it just turned out great. And you can see the beauty of our stained glass window now from the outside. So those are some of the things that our capital expenditures funds, and of course we want to continue the renewal, the beautification of our church here, phase 2 and phase 3, after that mural is done. That mural will take a whole year, by the way. And then finally, we have our 1%, where we invite each of us to give to our 1% of our income to our diocesan services appeal. And I'll allow the bishop himself to address that portion, as we always do.
My sisters and brothers in Christ, you are my chosen witnesses. This scripture from the prophet Isaiah shows us that we are called to bear witness to God's mercy. This is not merely a passive role. It involves actively proclaiming the truth of God's sovereignty and faithfulness. The call to be witnesses indicates that our existence and experiences are meant to reflect God's glory and truth to the nations. There are many ways we can be witnesses, but one important way is by participating in our diocesan services appeal. Our DSA offerings and their effects are a powerful testimony to both our community and to the broader society of our Catholic faith. Your DSA gifts enable the Church to give care and support to those who need it most. Our Catholic charities provide food and shelter to the destitute and offer counseling to those struggling with addiction. Life ministries arrange care and support to mothers and children of unplanned pregnancies. Vocations are fostered through the support of marriage prep programs, seminarian formation, and training for the diaconate. Programs are offered to foster active evangelization efforts in our parishes. The DSA sustains all these and many more ministries that proclaim our witness to the love of Jesus. Our DSA donations are vital to our ability to perform the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. We put your DSA gifts to work right away to provide help and hope for those most in need. They are not reserved for use in another year. Your dollars will go to help families and individuals struggling in our diocese this very year. Sisters and brothers, our Diocesan Services Appeal offers an incredible opportunity to demonstrate one way for us to be witnesses. By supporting our parishes and the many ministries of our wider Catholic Church through the DSA, we can truly proclaim that we are chosen witnesses. So I ask you to join me and all our brothers and sisters to contribute to DSA this year. With your support, we will carry out the work of the Church in the year ahead. Thank you. May God bless you for all that you do with and for one another.
So thank you, Bishop. Ever since we began the 541 model of stewardship, we've actually met or come very close to our DSA goal that the diocese gives to us. So we've really stepped up from the years when we didn't even come close, right? And so last year we barely missed it. So perhaps if you hadn't given to DSA last year, please consider you might be the one to take us over the top with our goal. If you're already giving online, like I am, I still fill this out. We ask you to fill this out as well. Whether or not there's a change in the amount of your regular giving, it helps us confirm that this is your intention for this upcoming fiscal year, right? So we do ask that you submit this pledge card along with your DSA pledge, both of them, by April 27th, as our budgeting process will be in full swing at that point. The aggregate of these pledges of why is it important? The aggregate of this pledges of all our parishioners helps confirm that we have sufficient funds coming in for our operations and capital projects for which we are budgeting. All right, so that's the summary of 541. At the end of the pews, you have both your St. John pledge card, which is to write down on the left side your 5% pledge, and then on the right side your 4% pledge. And then the second piece is, of course, the DSA envelope that goes hand in hand. You can see there's a perforated tear off here. That's where you write your 1% pledge, and then you tear it off, you stick it in the envelope, as well as sticking your 5-4 pledge into the envelope, and voila, just a one-stop shop. You just put it in the collection basket, or you can mail it in to the office or drop it off at the office. So thank you again for your generosity, for stepping up this past year. And all of this is in the midst of the Saints and Scholars campaign that the diocese just had for Catholic education, which raised over $1 million for Catholic education in all those 4 major ways that we're helping our community here, making Catholic education more affordable. So thank you so much. So proud of you as your pastor. And let's conclude with that invitation to know the power of silence in our lives. I want to share with you another excerpt from Cardinal Sarah's book, The Power of Silence. And this was the quote from the Saturday meditation from Hallow's Pray 40 Challenge. Cardinal Sarah said this: God's silence is a consuming fire for the man who approaches him. Silence impels us to an unknown land that is God. And this land becomes our true homeland. Through silence, we return to our heavenly origin, where there is nothing but calm, peace, repose, contemplation, and adoration of the radiant face of God. Remember our entrance antiphon today: seek the face of God. Silence with God is adoring, loving, and hearing him, listening to him, and resting in him. This is the silence of eternity, the union of the soul with God. End of quote. So let's get a taste of that now as we take another 3 minutes of silence, entering into the silence with Jesus in the desert or the mountain, to give Jesus the opportunity to speak to our hearts so that we too can echo Peter's refrain, Lord, it is good that we are here. And to enter in, I invite you to close your eyes, take a few deep breaths as I begin the timer here, so we don't have to worry about when that ends. And just a reminder too, with regards to the beautiful noise of our children, 10 o'clock was just, right? But the beautiful noise of our children, that should not be a distraction for us, but rather a call to enter into deeper reliance on God. Why? Because those children are you and me, our utter and complete need for God. Just as those children have an utter and complete need for mom and dad, we have a complete and utter need for God. Without him, as Scripture says, we can do nothing and we are nothing, because in him we live and move and have our being.